Okay, President Chin, you're all set.
Thank you. Good morning. This is Kat Chin, Board President of the Oregon Board of Pharmacy. I will now call this meeting of the Oregon Board of Pharmacy to order. Today is Thursday, November 7th, 2024, and it is 8:32 a.m. Board of Pharmacy meetings are conducted in accordance with the Oregon Public Meetings Law. Under the Public Meetings Law, governing bodies meeting are open to the public except as otherwise provided by law. The presiding officer has the authority to keep order and to impose any reasonable restrictions necessary for the efficient and orderly conduct of a meeting. Governing bodies are authorized by ORS 192.660 to meet in executive session in certain limited situations, including the consideration of information obtained by a health regulatory board as part of an investigation of licensee or applicant conduct. All official actions by the board must be taken by public vote, and the vote of each member must be recorded. Our mission. Oregon Board of Pharmacy serves to promote and protect public health, safety, and welfare by ensuring high standards in the practice of pharmacy and through effective regulation of the manufacture and distribution of drugs. The Oregon Board of Pharmacy is also committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, DEIB, within its organization and for the public it serves. This commitment is reflected in board membership, agency staffing, the services provided, and its efforts to promote patient safety and ensure access to quality pharmacy care. The board encourages review of the full 2024-2026 DEIB plan on the board website. We'll now call roll for board and staff. For the record, when I call your name, please verbally acknowledge here. And just for people online, we do have some people who will be arriving late due to some traffic issues locally. Board President Kat Chin here, Board Vice President Rich Joyce, Board Member Shannon Beeman, delayed, Board Member Jennifer Paul, here, Board Member Rosemary Hemmons,
Here.
Board Member Amy Kirkbride, still pending her arrival, Board Member Victoria Kroger, here, Board Member Priyal Patel, here, Board Member Anna Pinedo, here, Compliance Director Brian Efferma,
Here.
Chief Compliance Officer Joe Ball,
Here.
Interim Executive Director Rosa Klein,
Here.
Compliance Officer Jane Lee,
Here.
Operations Manager Rachel Melvin,
Here.
Pharmacist Consultant Gary Runyon,
Here.
Board Counsel Angela Hunt, here. And please note that Board Member Hemmons will be leaving at noon today. And when the other two board members arrive, we will note that they have joined the meeting. Public comment information. Public comment on the standards, criteria, and policy directives relating to the executive director recruitment will occur before the board votes on items related to the recruitment. Public comment for other items noticed on the agenda will occur towards the end of the meeting. Public comment is limited to matters that were noticed on the board meeting agenda. Board will not deliberate any issues or requests during public comments such as formal requests, issues currently under investigation, requests pending before the board, or currently proposed rules. Comments will not be allowed that are longer than the time allotted by the chair. For those in the room, sign up to provide public comment using the sheet on the podium, and for those virtually, email your request to pharmacy.board pharmacy.board@bop.oregon.gov by noon today. And etiquette, it's extremely important that board members speak directly in their microphone one at a time and capture the statements for the record. Board and staff, identify yourself as board or agency staff member, last name each time you speak. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and retained for public record keeping purposes. The board will meet in executive session briefly this morning after discussing general administration item. We'll now review and approve the board meeting agenda. Do board members have any proposed revisions to the meeting today? Board President Chin, no. Board Vice President Joyce?
No.
Board Member Beeman, late, Board Member Hall, Board Member Hemmons,
No.
Member Krugreig. And she'll be here. Board Member Kroger? No. Board Member Patel? No. Member Pinedo? No. Okay, is there agenda review and approval? Let's see, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Vice President Joyce.
Second, Board Member Hall. Hey, Board President Chin, yes. Board Vice President Joyce?
Yes.
Board Member Beeman? Board Member Hall? Yes. Board Member Hemmons?
Yes.
Member Kirkbride? Yes. Yay, note that Board Member Kirkbride has joined us. Board Member Kroger? Yes. Board Member Patel? Yes. Board Member Pinedo? Yes. Motion passes, with one board member, still on the way. Right, we would like to welcome our guest, Sherry Lauer, Client Agency Human Resources Manager with DAS, CHRO, Kylan Stevens, Executive Recruiter with DAS, CHRO, and Sylvia Crayman, Labor and Employment Legal Counsel with DOJ. And now we will have a board discussion about virtual board meetings, starting with staff member Klein.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So in the last couple of meetings, I think there was some discussion about the decision that you all made during the August board meeting you voted to convene virtual board meetings for some of your meetings in the following year. And there was some discussion about that not being adequate for communication, that it's better to meet in person and that was preferred. So we looked at all the potential consequences to the budget and found that it would be inconsequential if you all decided to vote to reinstate in-person board meetings for the foreseeable future. And so I just wanted to bring that to you all for discussion and any questions that you might have about the impact of that.
Thank you, Board Member Klein. So we had, during the August board meeting, voted to convene virtual board meetings in February, October, December board meetings of 2025, 2026, and 2027. If we, as with further discussion, decide that we would like to change that back to all in-person meetings, then we need to make a new motion to undo that previous motion. So I'll start with Board Member Hall on discussion.
Member Hall, I don't remember ever voting, we were told. And then we were told to choose which months we were gonna do online, so I would prefer in person, but I appreciate not everyone is close. So I don't know if there's a hybrid option if some people are not looking forward to that, but I would prefer in person.
Member Patel?
Board Member Patel, I echo whatever board member Paul said. Yeah, I don't think that there was official vote, but we just have to choose one. And I think we are choosing to do that because of the budgetary constraint. But I was like, as I told, like in August, it's a drop in the bucket. So I choose in person.
And just for the record, we did have to make a motion to make those changes to the schedule, but then all that being said, we do still need to motion that. So we did vote on it. Not, I think grudgingly, but we did make the vote. Yeah, it was, yeah, so it's. When you have to do all of this part, you kind of remember those things. So Board Member Kirkbride.
I agree with the previous speakers that in-person meetings are preferred, and I'm excited to hear that this is an option.
Board Member Hemmons,
Board Member Hemmons, I don't believe there was very much of a choice, before. In person, I'm for in person, but also like the option of hybrid if. And I believe that's the way it's always been, because I have seen members attend virtually, before, so. Going back to the way it was is fine with me.
Member Krog,
Board Member Kroger, my preference is always in person to allow for the public to have full ability to join and observe and listen to our meeting, so.
Board Member Beeman is still in traffic. Board Member Pinedo,
I agree with the in-person or virtual.
sure. Board Member Joyce,
Board Member Joyce. Yes, most definitely in person. When we did have teams, when we had to, because there was something called a pandemic a few years ago, it wasn't smooth at times and awkward to navigate the iPad along. Tiny iPad and yeah, I mean, obviously in person promotes better communication, and if you have to do teams, then do teams, but in person, definitely. Thanks.
you, and then I am an in-person person. So minus Board Member Beeman, who I could, I think we can all speak for Board Member Beeman that she would prefer in person as well. We would like to hear a motion. So is there a motion to move the meeting in person for all regularly scheduled board meetings for February, October, and December in 2025, 2026, and 2027?
So moved. Board Person Joyce.
And Board Member Kirkbride.
Thank you. Board President Chin, yes. Board Vice President Joyce.
Yes.
Board Member Beeman is still traffic. Board Member Hall. Yes. Board Member Kirkbride. Board Member Kroger.
Yes.
Member Patel.
Yes.
We were missing Board Member Hemmons.
Yes,
Member Pinedo.
Yes.
Motion passes with Board Member Beeman being absent. And we will now have board hands. Can we just pause and say, yay, 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 and thank you, board staff Klein for getting that information and checking the numbers again for us, because that was a very difficult discussion, and really appreciate your efforts to help us out with that. All right, now we will have board discussion about future strategic planning meetings. So the proposed November 5th, 2025 strategic planning meeting, that's something that you would like me to discuss to start with? Okay. So everything changed at that August board meeting. So currently there are no future strategic planning meetings scheduled. We used, for people who are new on the board, we used to meet a single day. Today would have been a single day strategic planning meeting that we changed to a review of the executive director, that we changed to this because of all the things that have happened. And then so it would have been a strategic planning meeting where we kind of got an update of where we were and were we on task and what we needed to do or adjust. And then the second year would be a 2-day meeting. Typically it was held remotely, and I don't know that we'll be able to afford remote 2-day meetings in the future, given some budget constraints, but 2-day meetings to do the list of where we are and where we want to be and adjusting the strategic plan. Currently, we have no board meetings scheduled for that. would the board like to convene a one-day strategic planning meeting to occur on November 5th, 2025? And there's information about pivotal resources. We have a current contract that expires in 2026 with Pivotal Resources. They are contracted to facilitate or consider, and we need to consider if we want to continue with Pivotal or if we want to consider other options. Staff member Klein may be able to provide remaining contract deliverables information. Member Klein, would you like to pop in here about the Pivotal information?
Yeah, thank you. This is Staff Member Klein. Thank you, President Chin. And I got, so CG, our Deputy Director, pulled all of the contract information for me. This is an expensive contract. So this contract went through 2026. The total for the entire contract with all deliverables was $149,625. Through the end of the planning work that you all did to produce the current strategic plan, you've spent $143,000. So there's $6,500 remaining, which isn't much, and it's an expensive service. So I guess we are not to go over the 149,000, so we have just a small amount left on that contract. It wouldn't support a full day that would be facilitated by Pivotal Resources. So just that's kind of the current status of that contract.
Thank you. And if we weren't, this is for President Chin, if we were not going to utilize Pivotal Resources to facilitate, what are the alternatives for us and in terms of facilitating a strategic planning meeting?
So this is Staff Member Klein. There are different options. So one consideration is we could utilize free resources. So there are people within state government who are adept at facilitation. We have project management capacity on the staff at the Board of Pharmacy. I think one important consideration is finding someone who will allow everyone to have a lively discussion and, back and forth without being kind of held back by, if you have a facilitator who's on staff, that can be challenging because the board is directing the staff to take actions. And so it's not as fluid as if you have a neutral facilitator. There are folks within state government you could use. I'm in my role that I'm on leave from at Department of Administrative Services. We have some good facilitators that we can lend for projects. We'd have to kind of sort that out if we could find capacity to do that through DAS. But and then another option would be you could go with someone local. Pivotal's based in California, so they're more expensive because of travel and other considerations. You could find someone local to do a smaller scope of a contract.
Thank you. We started with Board Member Hall. Let's start with Board Member Patel on comments and questions.
I would prefer, definitely it would be help if it's a third party than the staff. We can do like, as you mentioned, like locally someone, just for the small project or something like that. Or maybe we can use another agency project person who can facilitate this conversation.
Okay, and Board Member Kirkbride?
So I just want to be careful with language here. We already have a strategic plan, which sounds like we've paid a lot of money for a entity to help facilitate giving us a 5-year plan. I don't think we need to have that level of support to implement the strategic plan. I do think it's very important, as my understanding, new board members could be coming on in any given year, that we have a day to meet to talk through, getting together as a board and getting to know each other and actions to implement that plan. I don't think we need the big expensive resource to, redevelop that plan, because that's not the point of a strategic plan. It's supposed to be long lasting. So I think a facilitator, and I would imagine the state has resources we could draw from, that could help facilitate a meeting and a discussion. I agree that that facilitator should not be the executive director or staff or, board members, obviously, an outside person. I think that would be the most useful resource in between developing strategic plans.
Okay, Board Member Hemmons?
Board Member Hemmons, this is kind of starting to feel like we're meeting every month. There's just too many meetings. And I know we're talking about next year, but even this meeting, I thought this meeting was going to be about the recruitment and feels like a regular board meeting. I don't want to have another meeting. I think it's just too many meetings and we're meeting every month. That's my take on it.
This is, Board Member Chen, just for information, we've always had in the past a day in November that was a day in one year and 2 days in another year for strategic plan. And that has been the schedule for as long as I've been on the board, and it had been the schedule prior to my being on the board. For that, so that's just FYI to anybody who had comments, who wanted to have that information.
Yes, and that was what today's meeting was supposed to be. Today's meeting was initially set aside for that purpose, right? Wasn't it?
So this meeting.
And then it was changed to something else, and then we changed it to this recruitment. I don't know, just too many meetings. I'm sorry. It's just too many meetings. I feel like I'm seeing you folks every month, doing this every month, and I don't want to do this every month. Every other month is great.
Okay. Board Member, let's see, where am I? Kroger.
Board Member Kroger, just for points of clarity, just so I kind of understand, this current strategic plan goes through 2026.
No, 2029.
2029.
Yeah, looking at the old one.
That was, I don't, my thought processes on that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the previous,
The previous one was
executive
23
director
to
had
20.
made it go to 2029. And I don't know that that was something that we had any extensive discussion about. And I'm just thinking through, I think it was, me, I think it was a surprise that it was a 5-year strategic plan, because we usually typically, please, we'll go ahead, board.
Go ahead.
Staff.
Yeah,
Melvin.
Staff Member Melvin. So the first one was 2020 through 2024, and then we did it again in 2022 through 2026. And then this last one was 2024 through 2029. And so I do think the board did give direction on all 3 of those as far as the length or maybe pivotal resources. I'm struggling to remember myself, frankly.
Board Member Kroger, thank you for the points of clarity. I agree with Board Member Kirkbride that I think at this point, completely revisiting a strategic plan does not make sense to me. I think revisiting where we're at in the current strategic plan would be what this November 2025 meeting, I think, would be best suited for. I really have no further comment. The only thing I think there was questions on if it was off-site. Or the facilitator, that was the other point. I think using a free resource or a state resource would be what would be in the best interest of the board. And I would also like to know what other boards typically utilize for their strategic planning, if we're aligned with other health boards throughout the state when it comes to this type of planning.
Question. And the records show that board member Beeman is out of traffic, and with this, and it's your turn. So, board member Beeman, to catch up to where we're at, we're having a discussion regarding future strategic plans, which we did not have dates in the future. And so we found out that the contract with Pivotal Resources is rather hugely expensive and ends in 2026, and we only have $6,500 left on the contract, which doesn't even cover a day of facilitating. And board staff Klein had mentioned that there are free resources within the state, particularly some DAS facilitators who are available. And we could search out that option. There are also possibly local facilitators. We talked about staff facilitators, but I think that isn't something that most of the people who have spoken so far were interested in, because there's just a dynamic that makes it difficult to facilitate when you're on one side of the process. So we're talking about the one-day strategic planning meeting to occur on November 5th of next year.
As board member Beeman, I will go along with the consensus of the majority of the board. I won't be here then, so I don't. I do not want to sway any decisions in any way that would not be the consensus of the board, given that I will be not here then. I think it makes sense if the contract is up to look at less expensive options, especially given the unexpected budget expenditures that we seem to be facing and have faced. And yeah, so if I do recollect back at long ago strategic planning sessions, and the reason I believe we had went with Pivotal Resources is because of the way in which these strategic planning meetings had gone prior to our contract with them. And I just think that making sure the will of the board is really reflected in those strategic meetings is extremely important to almost keep things on track with a strategic plan that can be efficiently followed. Thanks.
Thank you. Member Pinedo.
Not having any experience with previous strategic planning meetings or what resources have been utilized previously and now. I'm gonna go with what previous board members believe is the best option with this and have more of a view of what it would be. I don't think that creating a whole new strategic plan at this point, no. So I'm gonna go with all of the town. Okay.
Thank you. Board member Joyce.
Yeah, board member Joyce, definitely utilizing DAS resources, less expensive. At this point in the strategic meeting, we don't need to go all out and spend a lot of money. There's, this is gonna be, next year is gonna be the second year of the 5-year plan. So I don't foresee any dramatic changes that would, meet the threshold of bringing in some, what's the name of the company? Pivotal. I mean, we can go with, definitely, less expensive, and probably just as, efficient and effective, gas resources. Yeah, it's just, there's no dramatic shift in, the practice of pharmacy, that I can foresee, but, you never know. It's not like, there's a pandemic or there's, robots that take it over or anything like that. So at this point, gas resources is fine with me, state resources, less expensive resources.
You and, Board Member Chin, I am, agreeable to a one-day strategic planning meeting to review, and if we need to make any tweaks, have a DAS facilitator available to help us through that process. But it will give the, newer board members, and we'll have another board member, after Board Member Beeman leaves, to just have everybody on the same page of where we are on a strategic plan and, if we're, what we still need to do. So, and I do agree with the DAS facilitator. I think that, a free resource is always a happy one. And if, and, well, I'll leave it at that. Board Member Hall.
I'm fine with the free resources available. I'm curious what we were using before. Remember Beeman was mentioning prior.
Board Member Beeman, I can't fully remember if it was gas provided or not, or if it was an outside source. I just remember it wasn't as efficient as Pivotal helped make it, but I think that is why the decision to go with Pivotal at the point we did was because we needed something a little more robust than what we were churning out before.
And I would like to at least have the one-day meeting. Nice to meet as a group and kind of mingle. So I echo what everyone else has been saying.
Okay, my count is that, majority of the board would like to meet in a one-day strategic plan meeting on November 5th. And to have a free resource such as DAS facilitator be arranged for that. So, if staff can do the, planning for that and the arranging of the facilitator, that would be awesome. We have to, people get booked up quite far in advance. So thank you for the comments, and now we're on to, we have all these other years that we didn't plan for, so, traditionally, we would have done a 2-day board meeting in 2026. We do have a longer 5-year strategic plan. And do we feel like we need to convene a 2-day strategic planning meeting in 2026? So every other year we would have, looked at and overhauled possibly the strategic plan. I mean, that's my recollection of being at 2 of these. Or do we want, since it is a 5-year plan, do we want to consider just another one day, sit down, meet, where are we? Are we where we want to be? How do we get to stay on track with our strategic plan? Or do we want to do a 2-day, look at it bigger and do all the voting thingies that we've done with the dots? And it might be that we don't know that answer because we haven't. I personally think that we almost have to meet in 2025 to figure out, do we need a 2-day session in 2026? Yes, Board Member Beeman.
Member Beeman, again, I won't be here, but I think if you have to make a decision now about whether or not to reserve the time for 2026, reserve 2 days, set aside 2 days for it, and then cut back if needed. That is, that happened several years between the major strategic plan kind of lifts. That if it was just a review was necessary, it would be cut back to 1 day. And I don't know if that's problematic anymore to do so or not, but at least that way the time is set aside, remember reservations are planned so that you can, it's easier to trim it than it is to add it on later in the game as you go along. And
That makes sense.
I think having a 2 day from, if I were still to be here with a new executive director, with new board members, with new leadership, you may want to have a bigger look at it, even though it's sooner than that, 5 years, which is why we had the 2022, I think, kind of bigger assessment of it was because the board, you don't know, we don't know what's gonna hit us, and we've been hit really hard by COVID and staffing and stuff like that, that to allow yourself to have the time if needed early on, we utilized that in 22.
I can go around the room, but
Board Member Kroger, I thought that there was discussion on for this meeting, we were going to be discussing executive director performance. Now, would that be typically rolled into that strategic planning meeting as well? Am I misunderstanding, right, the annual performance review of that executive director? Because I don't know if that makes a difference in the timing of 2 day versus 1 day meeting, if that would also be part of the conversations we'd be having.
I'm gonna defer to board staff. Mel, I don't remember that on the strategic plan that we included the executive director performance evaluation during that time at all. I'm trying to read, I thought. that
Yeah,
we-
staff member Melvin. So, and I'm not sure if Sherry Lauer is able to come off mute. She was having some AV problems, but originally this date today was booked as a strategic plan meeting.
That was the original.
Yes, that was the original. Then the prior executive director was hired in the month of November, and the way that the new 360 performance reviews kind of work, it just happened to be November. So we converted this day was turning into his
Okay.
performance review. So going forward though, Sherry, are you able to speak?
Can you hear me?
Yes, it works. Very good. So
Yay!
can you speak to, is it based on the date of hire for the 12-month?
For the review period.
Yes.
Technically, no. Technically, the governor's office has a executive director biannual schedule for performance evaluations. So that is a different cadence than what an annual review process might be. So there's two things for small boards and commissions. There's a biannual 360 that due dates, then the board for your annual evaluation would set the due date, and that typically for an annual review, because there's a budget note for small boards and commissions that an annual performance review is completed, that cadence is decided by the board. Historically, this board just had a month that it identified in the past, and our recommendation was annual based on the hire date for that portion of the review process, because there's two pieces.
Thank you. I think typically or historically from the 8 years I've been here, it used to occur every June during the board's annual business meeting.
What I recall,
Yeah.
because that's when we did all that kind of updates.
Yeah.
So, I think the date for that information, and we can figure out the other review when we hire a new person, we can set up those dates. So I will remember starting. Remember. One for strategic plan in November 6th.
I do today agree with Beeman and land days, and then we don't need to meet for next year and go to also gonna come on the remote piece, that earlier. Do not think the longer run of remote, I think when we're talking about making tough budget choices, being that we just were able to come back to in-person meetings, which is a big win. I don't remote location.
Amendments, are you on mute?
This
I'm
is
back to
Staff Member
Member
Klein. The folks on the who are joining online are, you guys are cutting in and out. The folks who are in the room, we can't hear you very well.
Okay, thank you. Let's make sure we're very close to the mics. We'll come back to board member Hemmons. We'll go to Kroger.
Kroger, with the two-day meeting and reduce it if we feel it's necessary.
I can't hear. It keeps going in and out. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you. I'll have board member Kroger start over again.
Board member Kroger. I agree with the meeting coming back if we need to the date. I do not think that a remote site is necessary given the budget constraints.
Thank you. Board member Hemmons will be then.
I couldn't really hear what the question is, but whatever the question is, my response is still the same. There are just too many meetings.
The question was in 2026, strategic planning meeting that is typically been on the books, would have been on the books for 2 days. And we're in the process of people saying 2 days versus 1 day, and whether or not to have it remote. So I'm understanding you don't want to do any strategic planning meeting.
No.
Thank you. Ben.
I would suggest planning for 2 days and cutting back at meeting 2. And using the word remote, which I don't know if that's being virtual or just like going somewhere. I think we've done plenty of meetings here in this room and they've been quite effective. So if the budgets and the concern, if you're concerned, yeah, you do it.
Member Pineda.
I'm for the meeting if we need to, and Monica, we're here, so here's great.
Member Joyce.
Yeah, definitely plan for 2 days, in fact, if we have to. In regards to the out of site, off site, remote location, don't expect to know maybe our budget will look like in 2026. It's not gonna be pretty. I mean, there'll be some changes that maybe that might shift that, but, obviously, we've done I've done strategic meetings here in this room and have been effective and efficient. Um, and so I would support that, but, preferably it would be nice. We can't do it.
Thank you. I'm today, and we don't need to be remote, and we won't be in this room. We'll be moving to another floor, and have another conference room, which might be even cozier and maybe warm. Who knows? So, board member Hall. I would say number 2 day, and then now when I first started on the board, we had the 2 day site remote strategic planning, and it was really nice.
I understand the budget. I think the other reason we chose another place in Oregon was to be accessible to other Oregonians and public. And so that was one other thing that I think didn't mention.
We had two public members come who able to come to the meetings here. It's just an FYI for that. Not for meetings.
Historically, though, that's why the whole offsite thing happens, is to make it a bit more accessible for people that can't travel or to. And I think having it where we had it in 23 last year to, and having it offsite was, A, because it could again post-COVID. And B, to try to get back to sort of the outreach and accessibility that the board had prior. So even though we didn't have the attendance, there have been other offsite strategic planning, we did have a very attendance from people. Okay, so given that it's just something to think about for the future, I'm not trying to, but just the historical perspective is that not everybody is in pharmacy that might want to attend in Portland, but now that we are virtual or half on half or it makes it a little bit different. So something to feel out for the future and what we think might have better participation from like disease.
And I think that that's something we can get budget wise each time to see what, how deep the hole. Board member,
I'll go with the 2 days, strategic planning meeting in 2026. Yeah, after getting one form of opinion said I agree, that due to budget constraint, if we have to do it here in Portland, then we have to do it here.
okay, we have. For 2025, and the last one would be, 2027, one day meeting, update, and November 3rd, 2027. Again, these would have been scheduled from previous meetings. That's what our cadence has been in November. We've always had a meeting either 1 day or 2 days. So with the board like to have a 1 day strategic planning meeting, November 3rd, 2027. And I will go around starting with board member comments. Hands, or would you want to do a strategic planning meeting in 2027? Back to your on you, and I can come back to you. Board Kroger? Board member Kroger, yes, okay. Member Beeman?
Agreement, I'd go with the majority.
Board member Pinedo? Member Pinedo?
Joyce,
Or Joyce, yes, I do like the, alternating 2 day, 1 day, 2 day, one every year, but I mean, they have it, 1 day.
Yeah, board member Chance, yes, board member Hall? Yes. Board member Patel?
So this one, 2027 strategic planning meeting, I don't know. It's different like what 2026. So 1 day or 2 day, I don't know if they need it. I really don't know. So I'll go with it, yes.
Typically, we do 2 Monday, so the year previous, we were doing 2 day. So that's staying on that same cadence, that's what I was, what we're looking at.
Yeah, but this year we don't have any, right? So
Let's start over again.
yeah.
Okay, board member Kirkbride?
Yeah, I agree with the cadence of, please, 1 day, strategic planning, automations.
You and board member Hemmons, did you have any comments?
It's breaking up. It's really hard to hear, but it sounds like you are still talking about I heard 1 or 2 days. I heard the number 2026. So I'm not really sure what the question is, but it still sounds like we're talking about adding another meeting. So I'm a no.
If we're not adding another meeting, this has been the cadence that we have had all along until our August board meeting when it got changed. And now we're adding it back to what we have traditionally been doing with either a 1 day or 2 day strategic planning meeting. And so we're now on November 3rd, 2027 for a 1 day strategic planning meeting.
Is this the meeting where we went to Newport Beach last year?
That was the 2 day meeting that we did in Newport. We typically would do the 2 day on a remote location. But this is the 1 day meeting in between the 2 day meetings.
So it's 3 days.
No, ma'am, it'll be 1 day. So in
Okay, so you're saying
2026,
instead of 2 days, it would just be 1 day.
yes, ma'am.
Oh, I can go for that. It's less days. Thank you.
Noted. All right. So, and then one last topic on strategic plan. Would the board like to have strategic plan updates from the executive directors of agency staff at each board meeting starting in December of 2025? So that was typically a topic on the agendas in the past. Just where we are in strategic plan, since we're here every other month doing all kinds of other work, but not really looking at strategic plan where we are in that. Would the board like to receive an update each board meeting from executive director or staff? And I will start with board member Kroger.
Board member, yes, I would like to receive updates on where our strategic plan. My question is, what are those updates? I see with the strategic plan are key actions. Would it be a report out on each one of the key actions listed about the strategic plan?
I think that when we have a new executive director, we would have that conversation as a board, asking the executive director what we expect as a report on the strategic plan. Does that make sense?
So as a board, we would direct the executive director on what topics we want to hear from on a regular.
We did.
Typically was that.
I don't know that I recall ever giving the executive director the direction on what to report on, but it's something that since we have a new person, we could give information about what the board would like to see as a report out each. Since it's every other month that we're meeting. Where we're at, and if it's the 4.7.
Okay. Board member Kroger, yes, I'd like report out from her.
Remember, Beeman, occasionally we would get the kind of formal report, which was helpful to kind of keep our eye on the prize of the strategic plan, but also like I'm helpful in the past. And I don't know how much, or if it puts more work or strain on staff to do so, but when we would have discussions, no matter what the topic, it would often be prefaced in the how and what items in the strategic plan we were hitting on having those discussions. And it's a huge strain for staff resources. That was really helpful because it could kind of center you. Since not having that on certain discussions in recent history, I hear and have a lot of why are you talking about this? And it kind of pulls back to that strategic plan, especially since we do a big lift every 4 to 5 years. This would when that little blurb in front is helpful, but this is why we're talking about it. And obviously it goes in one way or another, depending on the board's feelings of it. I think that dates would be great to know, I mean, especially because we have a strategic plan meeting to know where we're at throughout the year. When it comes time to that meeting to know what we need to work on at that point, or to kind of give us a marker of how we are doing successfully. Yeah. Thank you, Board Member Joyce.
Ideally, yes, with like some kind of report as far as updates. Does it have, does it need to happen, every meeting? I mean, yeah, sure, it could be a brief update, it could be a repetitive, from meeting to meeting, but, some kind of feedback from the executive director as far as where we're at in the strategic plan, so would be a good thing.
Yes, Member Paul?
Yeah, I would like to see an update. I do recall getting an update after we did our strategic hall, and it was really helpful and nice to know that things were actually happening that we talked about. So if it was just a brief update.
Michelle?
Yes, I would definitely like to get update every board meeting. It just kind of helps us where we are, where we're going. And sometimes you forget like what we talk about like 4 years ago. It's time really, so I would say yes.
Thank you. Board Member Brooke?
Yes, I support getting the baby meeting. I think that's an important piece to having a strategic plan and looking at it differently. I do also appreciate getting a live update versus another thing to read, which we get lots of in preparation for these meetings. Not that we won't read it, but I would appreciate a full report as well.
And Board Member Simmons?
Is anybody else having difficulties hearing? Is it coming in and out for you? It's just me.
Yeah, no, it's
very
the
hard to
internet
hear.
in the internet in the room is spotty, and so just so folks know who are in the room, the people who are online are getting about every other word. So we're not really following. Sorry.
Yeah, I can't even I can't figure out what was being discussed just now, so I can't really respond.
Member Simmons, we were, asking if you would like to have a strategic plan update from the executive director at each board member, at each board meeting starting in December 2025.
Sure.
So, thank you, and really sorry to hear that we're having difficulty with, what's happening on the internet and now, having the people on, the screen for us, virtual, not being able to hear every word that's concerning. And I think, board member Patel's question,
Board Member Patel, so is we are going to get update each meeting in December 2025 or December 2024? I think you said December 2025.
I did say December 2025. We did not have a strategic plan update this year. We will have a new executive director next year. If the new executive director feels that they are able to update us after whatever amount of time they've been in a position and feel comfortable doing that, I'm sure they could maybe do that early, but at this point, December 25 makes sense. So, Rosemary, when I'm talking, are you able to hear me completely?
This is Staff Member Melvin. Can we just take a 10-minute break so I can reset these microphones?
Okay.
Okay.
We are taking a 10-minute break to reset microphone before we get everybody remotely being able to hear every word. Thank you. 41.